Welcome to a special BQ Prime series of conversations with leading BFSI business and technology leaders that will focus on the challenges and opportunities faced by the BFSI sector, especially in the post-pandemic scenario. This series is brought to you in association with Oracle. The aim of this series is to increase awareness and define the way forward to critical areas that govern the BFSI space when it comes to data insights, customer experience, mitigating risks, as well as security concerns around data and prevention of fraud, and the issue of multi-cloud. Today, we have with us one of India's most respected BFSI leaders who leads digital at one of India's most admired banks, the Kotak Mahindra Bank. It is my privilege to welcome Deepak Sharma, President and Chief Digital Officer at Kotak Mahindra Bank. Deepak is responsible for digital strategy, technology transformation, payments, digital channels, innovation platforms, ecosystems, and future-ready initiatives at Kotak. Thank you for joining us here today, Deepak.
Pleasure, and thanks for inviting me over, Raipur.
Even as I begin, Deepak, I want to really applaud you all at Kotak Mahindra Bank. I know that you all did a wonderful job in terms of digital during the pandemic and where you led this transformation. Now, we all know that Kotak Mahindra Bank has provided a whole new range of customer initiatives and redefined many customer offerings. Now, from the perspective of looking forward, because we all are seeing the post-pandemic light at the end of the tunnel scenario, what, in your opinion, are some of the keys for achieving digital success in banking in the new normal? And this, again, at a time when digital is front and center, because both BFSI organizations as well as customers are far more attuned to digital today.
Yeah, I think that's true. And if I just start by saying that the way I look at every crisis is an opportunity. And while we all were unprepared for what was thrusted upon us, but somewhere I think there was a realization after the first wave that this is not just going away anywhere. The intensity may come and go, and there are things like you rightly said, we may be having a pause in between or a long pause at times. But I think this also gave us an opportunity to relook at our business model, look at how the consumer preferences are shifting because of the pandemic-induced change in social behavior, consumption pattern, the way customers or people look around the financial security, and a lot around the attitude towards money changed through this phase. And I think the whole part of technology and digital starts in my mind largely from the consumer. Because I think technology was always there. I think how do you put technology to the right use? How do we prioritize on the right bets is where I would say the secret sauce lies. And we all started to understand what's happening to small businesses, what's happening to corporates, what's happening to a retail consumer. Where are people investing? Where are they borrowing? If they are asking for moratorium, what kind of financial condition are they going through? And as a large universal bank, we obviously cater to all strata of society. And each segment had its own set of shift, I would say, in behavior or change in priorities. And we started to look at all our digital initiatives, weaving it across, be it a channel or be it the way we support our employees to handle customers, or the way we look at serving customers either through our branches or directly through our digital channel or contact center. And fundamentally, everything went through a change. I can hardly count on things that have remained the way they were 2 years back. Okay, the impact could be 10% in some areas and probably a 50, 60, 70% on the other areas. And this leads into the question of where do we see this trend taking us in the future? And I think the bets that we have taken on digital are largely around the trends which are sustainable, which are here to stay. And I think be it the product or services or journeys or transformation, or relooking at our OPEX versus CAPEX model, looking at the agile and the faster models to deliver software at speed, all that is here to stay. So we said, what is constant? Let's focus on that. And there are many constants that emerged out of this pandemic, which is here to stay.
Thank you for those insights, Deepak. One of the things that is very important from an agility perspective is that banks perhaps need to learn from nimble fintech firms because these firms are driving innovation, they are extremely agile, and they also leverage DevOps, etc., as part of this. Can you tell us a little bit about how Kotak Mahindra Bank, despite being a very large universal bank, is driving agility and remaining nimble in all the things that you all do?
No, I think you're right, because what we are seeing around us from be it the big tech or fintech is the speed. I think financial institutions had scale, and we lacked what we call is the speed of an insurgent, which is getting into every single aspect of financial service. I think the question that we ask ourselves is, it's not about what others are doing. Obviously, you can take inspiration or you can learn from what's happening around us. But the question is, how do we play this game? And the starting point is we play on our strengths. As a large bank which enjoys the trust of customer, I think the first and foremost important thing is how relevant are we to our customers in this hour. And that's where, when we look at our initiatives, one of the key lenses or pegs that we measure is how are we measuring ourselves on the customer experience and journey. And I think that during this time, we launched many interesting things, keeping in mind change in customer preferences and doing it at speed. I think one of the things we have transformed ourselves over a period of time, while there's still a long journey ahead, is how do we move fast without breaking things? And what makes us different than probably a lot of fintech is we have a higher level of regulatory risk, compliance, and the trust oversight. So while we want to be fast and nimble, we just can't have accidents on the way. And thereby, what I keep calling famously in our case is we have to always have an eye on innovation and the speed at the same time on the risk and compliance. And I think keeping these two different axes together, I'm glad to say that we have been able to launch many things, be it we were the first one to launch video KYC, because we felt that's the need of the hour for business to continue. Or very recently, like we launched a pay to contact, which is a customer can pay just using a mobile number. So you don't need many UPI apps as long as you have a Kotak Bank app, or probably increasing our marketplace through likes of Amazon or Big Basket and Nykaa and 1MG, because we realized this is where customers were spending money, be it a pharmaceutical or grocery or online shopping. And we just wanted to prioritize things which delights customers, which brings us closer to our customer. And as we speak, I think each of our digital initiative that we are fast tracking has a clear measured outcomes as to either it helps us in productivity or profitability or customer experience or security. And I think as long as we are able to achieve those outcomes really fast by mobilizing team, by looking at a different operating model than the traditional financial firms used to do. That means as you move agile and go to DevOps, you need to get into the sprint cycles, faster release. So we moved into things where we are able to deliver software every 2 weeks. I think it's a big shift from where it used to take months to plan and deliver. And I think as we have moved to a shorter implementation cycle, in-house, we have created our own design studio, a consumer insight practice. A lot of development teams are now in-house at Kotak. And I think all of that now helps us move fast. And this apart, I think we also took a big leap of moving towards cloud, moving towards a lot of open source platforms. So we also made a different technology choice as to how do we want to scale up, or looking at the whole API and microservice stack. And I think each building block has helped us move faster. And we are still in this journey, I would say. We haven't yet arrived yet.
Deepak, you spoke about some of the new technologies like cloud, etc., that are being leveraged. How do you think banks can benefit by adopting a multi-cloud approach? And could you tell us a little bit more about your strategy of taking advantage of a multi-cloud model?
So I think multi-cloud is the reality. Okay. I don't think one has a choice. For the very simple reason that today the modern software that we are all going after our application, first, it's much faster to deploy them on cloud. So the speed is key. Deploying things on-prem has a longer deployment cycle, including managing over-the-air updates. That's the first thing. The second is, I think, managing conventional data center is a core hardware job. Banks, I think, have too many other priorities, largely as we move to agile and a faster software, or ability to scale up, scale down certain applications, doing a lot of those innovation. And as we start with all of this, we see a model where typically we have combination of software which are deployed in our cloud environment, and then there are SaaS providers who have their own cloud where this is housed. So today, when we speak, we have an architecture which supports a multi-cloud for the very simple reason that not all softwares are going to be necessarily deployed in a single cloud. Nor does you see necessarily a benefit of putting everything at one place. But so depending on the model that we choose, connecting hybrid rather than just multi-cloud, that means we'll continue to have our own data center, our own private cloud. But at the same time, looking at a multi-cloud environment, depending on which of our application is best served or housed at a particular place. And I think this is the only way in my mind. This is not the choice, but this is must for firms to move ahead.
Thank you for those insights, Deepak. Now, other technologies that are a core part of business today are, of course, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and even blockchains, etc., in the BFSI space to make banking more secure, ensure better compliance, and reduce chances of fraud. What are you at Kotak Mahindra Bank doing on this front? And how should banking leaders really approach some of these new cutting-edge technologies?
Well, I'm sure all the banks are definitely there on AI and ML because we have been managing a lot of data over a period of time. And it's only prudent for us to see how do we create value out of the data. So I think the recommendation or personalization to customers, more targeted offer, because banks were often accused of spamming customer with a lot of things. And customers used to say, hey, you don't know me well enough to send me certain things that I already own. So I think starting from solving those problems, which I would call were at the bottom of our food chain, of making more targeted offer, pre-approved offer, looking at the propensity-based models to see. So that was more of data science. Now, as we moved ahead on AI and ML, which is more about predicting the future, can I tell you when you need a loan before you know yourself? For that, if I understand your cash flow analysis, if I understand what kind of expenses are going to come, I can think about it in the future and can build a predictive model. And I think that's where we are in trying to understand what kind of a need gap, what kind of a recommendation into future will come in. Similarly, on the whole NLP side, we have started to expand significantly, especially on the conversational, multilingual, intent-based design. A lot of AI ML is also getting used now as we speak around the anti-money laundering, fraud risk monitoring, real-time threat and controls. Because these are, again, the places where you just have to act in a fraction of a second. You just don't have the luxury of taking too much time. And there are patterns. There is a data that we keep looking at all the time. So I think each area, customer-facing, mid-office, automation through robotic process and the programmatic OCR learning through cognitive models, I think, which impacts the paper and how do we digitize the paper and start training those models to read and interpret. I think we are seeing those applications across the firm. And this, again, I would say is already ingrained, and we will continue to see more of this in everything. And that's part of our ABCD charter at Kotak, where our A stands for AI-enabled applications. So one of the things we often ask is, how are we using AI? What is the data that we are generating? And how are we going to use this data? I think blockchain, we have started to see some interesting development, like the blockchain infrastructure company, BIC, where Kotak, along with some banks, have joined hand to start looking at areas around the supply chain and trade finance route. We are already there on the Ripple platform, which supports us on a cross-border remittance, and we see decent volumes flow into India that we support on the blockchain. So we are doing real transactions remittance over a period of time. And I think this will only increase. It's just that the industry level maturity has started to come in. I think there are few ideas where there's a convergence between different players in the ecosystem. And now with RBI also looking at own digital currency that is being planned, in my mind, I think the overall intensity towards blockchain and its adoption in cross financial service will only increase.
Deepak, I just want to rewind a bit, where you earlier mentioned about walking a fine line and balancing the needs of business and risk. Given that a lot of this is around compliance, how do you see compliance going forward and risk management, which is perhaps equally critical? How do you see banks being able to stay on top of some of these challenges and still walk the fine balance and do it perfectly?
See, as a custodian of customers' money and trust, banks have no choice. But I think we have to really keep raising the bar. And that's the only way, I would say. And it's not just about the basic risk management prudence, because the dimensions of risk overall is changing manifold. I think thanks to the 24/7 banking now, where all your payment channels are open 24/7, right from NEFT to RTGS. So the risk has also moved to 24/7. And the dimensions of risk, be it from a cybersecurity or operational risk or from a credit risk or market risk, I think has also changed dramatically. So we are using more of technology, because I think while you always can build a lot more of capability through talent and people, but we strongly believe now that technology across all this, and what we call famously the RegTech, is becoming core to, be it the real-time reporting or transaction monitoring or threat perception around cybersecurity or risk-based authentication or providing encryptions. And I think this will continue to increase in my mind over a period of time, because this level of threat and the demand to stand up and measure up to various controls and risks is only going to get heightened with time. And I think it's important for financial institutions to ensure that this is one of the core pillars that we keep strengthening with the back of technology.
Thank you for that perspective, Deepak. My final question is on the future of work. Now, one of the things that the pandemic showed us was that remote working, hybrid work, etc., was very much possible, that this didn't just exist in the realm of possibility and possibly far into the future, but it just became possible right now. While banking is perhaps one sector where a lot of staff still need to come to work, but I still believe that there could be areas or facets of your business where this may no longer be necessary, or perhaps where hybrid work may be possible. So from your perspective at Kotak Mahindra Bank and as a digital leader at one of India's most admired banks, how does the future of work look like? And especially, all this considering that you are working in an extremely regulated sector.
That's true. And I think we have already started to see that future of work as we resumed after wave one. And then again, we had a wave two where we all had to operate as much remotely. And then again, we started to open up. And I think this opening up, closing down has taught us one thing for sure, that there are certain roles which are required to be necessarily out there, be it in the field or be it in office, which can be due to systems, controls, risk, or customer demand. But there are a lot of roles which are skill-based roles, say on the development or individual contributor roles, which are not necessary to be in office. So I think one needs to really be open about it and question everything, be it the way offices are built, to the way the co-working or the old office layouts were, to the very purpose for which people are coming to work in office. Because at the end of it, I think we all realize today that the cities are not really the most efficient with infrastructure where you can travel, commute without losing, say, a couple of hours of time in any city in the country. If you can save that 2 to 3 hours a day and work more productively, or if people can work flexi hours at the time when they are more productive in their work, why not? And I think this is what we have all started to learn and experiment. And we are seeing success in certain roles. And in my mind, as we learn out of this, both the pros and cons, I think we are getting this clarity now as to which roles, at what time, flexi or non-flexi, or probably a few days in office and rest of the time remote, or fully remote for certain roles can happen. And especially in areas that I run around digital technology, today we find we can get talent from anywhere in the country. They don't need to be in Mumbai or Bangalore to work with us. And I think that in my mind is a big shift in terms of both approach and also the mindset. That as long as you have a good internet connectivity, you can be working. It doesn't matter which part of the country or the world are you in.
That certainly seems like the way forward, Deepak. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Thank you for taking us through your experience of driving innovation at Kotak Mahindra Bank, for telling us how you are driving agility that is of a nature comparable to nimble fintech firms, how you are leveraging cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, and balancing risk and customer centricity at the same time. And of course, for explaining why multi-cloud is at the heart of the future of platforms in banking. Thank you for your valuable time and for the rich insights that you shared today.
Yeah, pleasure, Ivan. Nice talking to you too.